Hello everyone. Before the video starts, I must mention shop pro political gear at propoliticalgear.com. Get your political apparel here today. Hello and welcome to this St. Patrick's Day edition to Pro Political Pod. I am your host, Chris Caputo.
And I am your co-host, Andrew Cornick. Here on the Pro Political Pod, we like to talk about the news, crack jokes, and try to figure out what the hell is going on in this country and even the world. So like my co-host just said, today's St. Patrick's Day. So if you celebrate and you're watching today, then have a great St. Patrick's Day. If not, you have a great day anyways, and it doesn't matter because we're not going to talk about it after this.
Let me be clear.
I am the chosen.
You peddle false narratives.
Sexy move. We'll see who cancels who.
Watch me.
So we're going to get right into the news. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. Starting out, Michigan this week has repealed their right to work laws. If you don't know what right to work laws, it's basically a workers' rights issue. Right to work, essentially, they want to defund the unions. I'm very pro-union as someone who's on the left. I think unions are really important to have as I think everyone should be in a union personally. Not everyone's in one. Union participation has been down drastically in the past 40 years, and laws like this are a big reason why. Because basically they try to villainize union dues and make it seem like, oh, you're paying a union due, so you're actually making less money being in a union than not being in one. When the reality is that union dues support a good union. If you have a good union, they can negotiate, so you get way more benefits, way better pay, and all around you're just in a better position as a worker. So this is really big news because Michigan, the fact they have a right to work law is kind of insane because in history they've been one of the strongest union states like since the 30s when this sort of thing really started with the New Deal movement. So for them to even get to that point was really bad for them. It happened in 2012, so it was about a decade of having this in place. Recently, they had a Democrat supermajority, and they really won on this pro-union, pro-worker message. And it really helped them put across the finish line. And they promised to repeal these laws. And the current governor, Governor Weimer, is doing that, which is really good. So, you have anything to add to that, Chris?
No, not at all. I mean, I definitely think that unions have to, and I hear people when they talk about unions in New York, is definitely they gotta. I keep hearing unions are not for the people anymore in New York, at least. So there's problems going on that I keep hearing with unions. I think that's something that they have gonna have to fix. I don't know the details of all of that, but I hear it going around, and it's not. And it's people, like I said, from unions, so it's not like, oh, it's like some. I'm watching some news station that's telling me, oh, this is what's going on. No, this is what I'm hearing.
Hmm.
So when you hear that, it's kind of like, well, what are they doing wrong? What can they
Well,
do
do you know
better?
which unions are like having those issues, like what industries or?
I don't know them by name. I gotta be honest. I don't. But unions are definitely very pro worker. I mean, the
Yeah.
benefit you get for being in a union.
Because I mean, don't get me wrong. There is obviously like corruption can happen in a union because there is like a structure to
Yeah,
it. So if you're not
of course.
careful, but unions by design are more democratic than the traditional workplace, which is why they're better than having nothing. Because I think the more democratic you make a workplace, the better it is for their workers. So that's kind of that's the goal, right? Like unions are definitely like a big step in the right direction. But for a long time, we've been going in the wrong direction when it comes to worker democracy and stuff like that. So I think
Yeah.
I think repealing that definitely is a really important first step. I mean, obviously, I think they should go further. If the Democrats are going to do that, it's really up in the air. Probably not. But the fact they're ostensibly pro-union and that they know they kind of have to do this to even have a chance in these Rust Belt states like Michigan, because it's no coincidence that like them posturing more in this way leads to them winning states like Michigan, like Pennsylvania, where in the past they've really struggled. So it's like just an issue where it's like they really got to be careful with their rhetoric, and they've been better on it, but they got to stay persistent on it and really deliver in more meaningful ways. So it's a really good start. Obviously, not every state like this is going to have this kind of bar to pass, though. They're going to have to go further, I think, when it comes to being pro-union.
Yeah.
But I think I have a question. Do you think because a lot of right to work states are red states, but they are also poorer red states. Do you see a path, maybe like more among like the people than the politicians, like a movement to try to get to work repealed in certain states? You know, like
N-
Alabama, like Kentucky, like stuff like that.
No, I don't think so. I mean, of course, I think it would benefit them, but I don't think they either one understand or two they don't
But
have the time
there've
or
been a
they
lot of
feel
union
like they don't have
protests
the
in the past
time.
year, though. No,
I mean, yeah, there has been absolutely, but you have to understand where some of these people come from in some of their states. If they don't know anyone that's in it,
well, I think that's
like
part of the reason
personally,
why there's been
yeah.
more like there's just more info on it just out in the open, like, on the internet and stuff like that, and in news where it's like, okay, unions exist and places have even there are even industries in like more red states that have histories of unions and stuff like that. So I think there is a place for like maybe more movement to make it so like more states can maybe repeal it, or at least even if they can't repeal right to work, they can build stronger unions around those laws. I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying I don't think it's gonna happen. Well, also we have to talk about a time frame, right? I mean, what would you say a time frame would be? And then maybe I could agree with you. I mean, because
Well,
like
I
I
think it would
said, it
really
depends.
depend. Yeah, I think it would really depend on the state, and what their dynamics are like. Actually, let me check
Like,
the.
do you think like I would say like southern states that like a Walmart, for example. Do you think that places in Walmart in like a Mississippi or certain states like that? You think they would allow that? Do you think that would,
Well, I
you know what I
think
mean?
the fact that those like big corporations in a lot of states like that, those are like the biggest thing they can really get into, like Amazon, your WalMarts. I think yeah, I think the workers themselves would be more like, yeah, I kind of want a union,
Hmm.
to kind of have more control because in the absence of like any kind of small business, which a lot of these areas are increasingly lacking as time goes on. I think that will create a void where it's like, okay, well, I want more democracy, more say in my work. So I could see that.
It could happen, but
I mean, like Georgia's a state that has
again,
right to work, right? And I mean, that's kind of like a purple state now, right? So, just in terms of the politics of
Georgia,
it, yeah.
man, Georgia's weird because I kind of see it as of from the past two elections. I see it as like a blue state now, and it could be very well
I
be a
don't.
purple
I wouldn't
state.
call. I would say purple's more accurate for Georgia because they still have the
They did
Republican
have close.
governor,
They did have close. They did have close elections. I must say.
and yeah, and the
Um.
Senate races were relatively close as well.
Yeah. I mean. Yeah. You know what? I'll agree. It is a purple state. It is a
It's
purple state.
purple. Biden won very close in 2020, of course, but still, I mean, and part of the reason, at least they won the first time, was on a more kind of working class oriented, like we want to, you know, bail out the workers with the checks and stuff like that's a message that really resonated with like the working class. So if they want to lean into that more politically, it's smart for them to kind of do.
Yeah. No, I agree. But like Mississippi is not a purple state, so I mean, but we'll. I mean,
I
we'll
think,
see
but
what
I don't
happens.
know. I'm
But
of the opinion that I think that like obviously this isn't like an overnight like oh yeah, in like 2 or 3 election cycles, you're gonna have like the dynamics for to overturn it. Definitely not. But
yeah,
just to
no.
like, but just to make the
And
sentiment
within
better,
the next decade, you're saying, or like
possibly.
right, like around there, because like
And I mean,
then
and things can change, like
maybe,
I
yeah,
feel like
yeah.
COVID changed a lot of people's perspectives when it comes to certain economics issues. Well,
Especially work. I mean, work. A lot of people working at home. A lot of people just don't want to. You know, they don't have to go outside and spend money on gas or spend money on here in New York. Take the metro. How much is it? Like 275 or is it 325?
yeah, and
I don't
it's not even just
remember.
poor people like who, 'cause I feel like that's what it often kind of like what you would picture. But even like middle class, upper middle class people were reconsidering their work, kind of thinking, well, maybe I'm worth more,
And
or
then there's
maybe,
that
or like you
too.
said with the work from home example, like, well, why do I have to go to an office when I can just do the same work from home and it's more efficient?
Absolutely. And you know who's a big player in that?
Who?
Our generation, Gen Z.
Oh yeah,
Gen Z wants to grab the bag and that's it, and they're out.
absolutely.
I think the thing is with Gen Z is, and don't get me wrong, there are some lazy Gen Zers out there. There's lazy people in all generations, and
Lazy
I think
everyone.
I think Gen Z has some lazy people. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people in Gen Z are bag getters. Like they want that bag, and they will see. They'll be like, okay, you want me to do this job, but for how much? Okay, it's not worth it for me. Never mind. They
Yeah,
will tell
but
you
I
it's
think,
not worth it for me. That's what they're gonna tell you,
and I think
and
that's a big thing too. That
they're getting
people,
smarter with that.
particularly like upper class older people, will mischaracterize that distinction as, oh well, they're just lazy, when the reality is like they know they'll do the work, but they know when they're being swindled.
And trust me, I've seen lazy Gen Z workers. I mean, they do exist. I can't say they don't exist, but uh,
I think a good portion of them, though, like if you gave them something they were passionate about, they would harder
well,
than.
of course, if you give
I think that's
most
for
people who are
anyone, like not
passionate
just,
about.
yeah.
But I'm not talking about passionate jobs. I'm talking about working like local places. So like a place in like Pennsylvania, working at like a Cracker Barrel. I was at a Cracker Barrel about a couple of months ago, and I know that they were short staffed. So
Yeah.
and you see it says we're hiring, and I saw it throughout Pennsylvania. So I see it all around, even in New York. I mean, you walk around. If you're from New York, you see it. You walk around, you see we're hiring. You see that everywhere, right? So there's
You know what the minimum
places
wage is in
hiring.
Pennsylvania?
It's like $8,
7.25.
$7.25, and then that's your reason why.
Yeah.
I think that they're because it's not just, oh well, different states have different prices. I agree with that, right? But and that's when we're talking about groceries and bills like that. But the younger generation, okay, because this really wasn't a problem back in the day. Back in the 1950s, you weren't getting an iPhone, you weren't getting a new TV, you weren't getting new this, and that.
Well, but
Okay,
in the 1950s, there was better union participation as well,
there was, of course. But the point I'm
and
trying to make here,
people made more money proportion to what they were working back.
of course, but at the same time, there's a
More
lot more
products.
more products to buy in today's age than there ever was ever. So that's also something that like is not talked about, and
I mean, there's
it's
always gonna
definitely
there's always like those commodities. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You could
like
argue like if they're more or less expensive and stuff like that. But
they weren't
that's
buying.
part of the problem, is that they're more expensive, but the amount of money that, like, wages are pretty stagnant when you
Mhm.
factor that in too.
I mean, you look at just sneakers in general. Look at that, dude. Like sneakers are insane. You look at the price of a sneaker. I mean, if you buy Converse, you buy that $60 shoe, or if you get it for less. But not everyone's wearing Converse anymore, right? I mean, a lot of people do. Don't get me wrong. Like I have some Converse sneakers that I do wear, but you got Nike. You got all these other things that the kids want. Of course, they want Yeezys, which I mean even now, even with Kanye being canceled or whatever, or out of the deal, people still love Kanye and they love his shoe. And even if they don't love Kanye, they love the shoe because I hear it all the time. It's so comfortable. It's this and that. Uh, look, I have a huge PC right here. I have a PS5. I mean, these are things that they didn't have back then. So when Gen Z, going back to the original point here, when Gen Z looks at the stuff that they want and realize that their $7 an hour job cannot afford any of them they're going to find money and try to get money a different way. They're going to get that bag, and it's going to happen in a different way. It could be online. It could be drop shipping's big. Okay, so a lot of Gen Z has decided doing drop shipping. I mean, there's just a lot of components um, a lot of different options of how to get money nowadays because of online. Which, yeah, some businesses feel like they're being killed over it, but they also feel like they're not getting their fair share of money.
But
That's how Gen Z operates, and that's
even in
why,
those businesses
yeah.
that feel like being killed, there's new businesses popping up that are just as exploitive when it comes to like these like for example like the delivery jobs and stuff like that all these guys are getting into.
Oh yeah, of course. Um,
Like the Ubers and DoorDashes I'm talking about,
oh
because
yeah, of
those are
course.
like examples of like quick ways to get money,
Oh, absolutely. So there's also
but
that.
it's very unregulated as a result because it's very new.
Oh yeah, And you look at people who work in like a Starbucks. You see Starbucks. There's a couple of them starting to unionize. I mean, we saw in the news a lot last year,
It's a
right?
lot. It's still ongoing.
It's
And
still ongoing, yeah. And
I
there's a lot
believe
of people that will
the
work there.
CEO is going to testify for union busting on the 29th.
Oh wow, of
Congress,
this
yeah.
month?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
So I mean,
a lot of
there's
interesting things going on in the world of labor.
yeah, a lot of labor laws being put in place, or a lot of unions being placed. A lot of people want to start a union in their workplace, and they want to get their benefits.
It's
So
good.
no matter what someone could tell you on TV or whatever, unions are are constructed to be for the good of the worker. And even if you're in a bad union, okay, which obviously is a big problem. We should not have bad unions. But if you're in a bad union, you're still in it because there is some sort of benefit. It needs to be fixed. And I think the bad ones have to be fixed. And that's something that is not going to be talked about for a long time until a lot of these other places start unionizing. And the only people that are going to talk about bad unions are the ones that are just against unions. So that's really what the problem is with unions, the current state of it. Um,
It's all corruption. That's the
and
number one
yeah,
political issue of all time. It's corruption.
exactly. Corruption. And that's all I got to say for unions for now.
All right.
So,
Care to talk about the next topic?
yeah, speaking of corruption, right? January 6th, everyone's favorite topic. Oh man, January 6th. What a day. What a day to live. What a day to turn back the TV to 2021 and see what was going on in the Capitol. Well, we got some new footage. Well, a week or two old footage, but we got it. And we saw it, and it was presented by no other than Tucker Carlson on Fox News. And Tucker showed us an interesting video. All right, he showed us the Q shaman. Was it Q shaman or
You
shaman?
shaman.
Q shaman, right? Okay,
Shaman.
shaman. Yeah, I realized like that's not it. Uh, he was in the Capitol, right? They didn't show how he got into the Capitol. I don't
Of
think they
course.
showed that, but they showed he was in the Capitol, and he really wasn't doing much. He was just kind of just walking around, taking his own tour, right? And he got up. He sat where the House Speaker sits, I believe. They had a video of that, and he really didn't do much. He was just roaming around, and you had the Capitol Police, just guiding him through the doors and this and that. And it brings up an interesting point. It's like, why wouldn't they arrest him? Right? Why wouldn't they get him? Obviously, they got him. They got him now. And they got him for, I believe it was 41 months prison. And there's a lot of people complaining about the 41 months in prison. Well, it's very simple. And a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives, especially if 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 you're with the MAGA crowd, you're gonna say, well, he doesn't deserve it. And I'll tell you why they did it. They did it to make an example out of him. They wanted to make an example out of him because they don't want this to happen again. And that's it. That's all there is to it. With this guy, all right. Everybody else, I believe, got maybe 6 months in prison, stuff like that. The problem is, okay, and the problem isn't that he did anything outrageously wrong, but there's a few wrongs in this, if that makes sense, right? Because I know some people are gonna turn around and be like, oh, but he really didn't do anything. Okay, well, the one thing that he did and that everybody else did when you walked into the Capitol, even if you didn't break down the doors, because other people already did that for them, right? And they just walked in. It's trespassing. So if it's trespassing, that's already a crime. Okay? You can't trespass. Another problem with this guy specifically, even if he didn't use it as a weapon, he had a 6-foot spear in his hand. Now, like I said, he may have not used it as a weapon, but it very well could have been. So I think it was just there as a prop that he just, wanted to get to dress up and be this guy, right? that everyone talks about, and he got exactly what he wanted. Just the problem is he's gonna do some time because of it. Um, don't forget January 6th, right? It was 5 people died during or after the attack, including 4 protesters and 1 police officer, and approximately 140 officers were injured, according to the Department of Justice. Now January 6th, I know they had the cameras where Nancy Pelosi was, and they were getting her reaction, and it's they really. I mean, I don't know. On that, I think they just want to make more liberals scared. I mean, I think they just want to be like, "Oh my god, like look what's going on." You know what I mean?
I think it is
Like
scary.
and it was scary, but the way they played it, the way it was done, I feel like I'm not saying that it wasn't wrong. The whole thing should never happen. But we all know that it stems from media, and it stems from a certain person. And unfortunately, right? Like the election, we could talk about the election 2020, whether you think it's rigged or not, right? When you tell someone that the election has been stolen, okay, that is an outrageous crime to steal an election. That's insane. Now you're gonna tell people that. Well, what are you going to expect? If
Not
anything,
intelligence.
but if
Not an
anything,
intelligent response.
you would expect maybe a little bit worse than January 6th. But it didn't, right? January 6th was already bad enough, okay? But when you hear and because Trump
I mean, I
said
think I fully think they were capable of doing worse. They just
they
weren't
could have,
really
they
given
just
the chance.
I don't think they were no, they were given the chance, they just didn't do it.
I mean, they didn't run into anyone that
Oh,
of
oh, me,
interest.
like people, like
Yeah,
politicians. Oh,
yeah,
yeah. I mean
totally
that
agree.
that could have been a problem. That could have been a problem. But I'm talking about like the Capitol building itself. I'm not talking about politicians. Um, like destroying stuff and all that.
I
Um,
mean, that doesn't really matter. It's like all replaceable. Like it's bad, but it's not like I don't think they really care about like they're not in there to destroy everything. They're in there because they want their leader.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
think
that's
they were much
true.
more interested in finding politicians is like just making a mess.
Yeah, they
The
they
mess
had
that
a.
happened.
Can you imagine though being a politician though and just like sitting there and be like, oh my god, what's going
Yeah,
on? That's
but
crazy.
again, I think that's why like the media is obviously going to play up the fear factor, but I think to an extent it's legitimate because it's like
Well, of
imagine being
course.
there.
Yeah, the fear factor, obviously, like I said, media really takes it, and amplifies the situation. Even though it was bad, I'm not saying it wasn't bad, but this is just an attack. This whole segment right here, I just want you to know, and I think Andrew wants you to know, this is an attack on media. That's what this whole segment's about. Really, it's really an attack on media and how people can take any type of information, spin it, and give it out to everybody. That's really the point of this segment right now. All
Well,
right,
yeah, I mean
you
Tucker
know,
like took that
yeah.
like 30 seconds a clip to say like, oh yeah, this guy wasn't doing anything wrong, and it's like
It's like you're right, he didn't, but
in
you
that
know what he
video
did wrong? He
he was
walked in.
trespassing. Yeah,
Yeah, he trespassed. So, and like I said, he had the 6 foot spear, which he didn't hit
yeah,
anybody with that I know of. So,
but still, when you're already like, it's just a strike against you, and that's
oh, of
how like
course.
the law works.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And again, these are the
Um,
people who are pro law and order. It's not me. It's all good.
yeah, that's definitely a double
I don't know.
standard on that day.
I
It
know
was
you weren't
crazy.
really following the Dominion lawsuit too much, but do you think that what they leaked about Tucker's like text message, do you think that motivated him to release this as well as just the normal like partisan
Oh,
tribal
it
stuff?
it could have been. It could have been because it's a very because people link January 6th to one person specifically. I mean, it's linked to many people, but it's linked to Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, he's gonna want to play the good side of,
Yeah,
you
well,
know.
because it came out like there was text basically of Tucker like trashing Trump very badly, like basically being like, I don't like this guy, like I can't wait to stop talking about him. and the election rig stuff is crazy and not true. But that's what he says privately, but publicly he defends it, and he says January 6th not only was not a big deal, but it's just an excuse to crack down on like conservatives as a whole. So it's very knowingly lying about the whole situation. That came out, and then he does another thing. Now, of course, I mean, these segments can take a while to plan out. Maybe it was a coincidence, but I think it's a pretty strong.
Could have been a coincidence, but I mean,
Still, I mean, like the lawsuit's ongoing. Maybe he's like, oh shit, this might come out. But just to say like, hey man, I'm still pro-Trump, pro like the election line, all that stuff too. It's interesting though that he's taking that side because Fox as a whole has been more pro DeSantis as of late.
well, what, well, and it's like
As far as like the media is trying to like.
is, but then that really like it makes you think about it, right? Like, is DeSantis gonna run?
I mean, I think so, absolutely.
There's a good chance, and if anything, if he doesn't run, he's playing a great long game.
I don't.
Now that I
I
think
don't think
about
he
it,
has. I don't think he has nothing to play a long game. I really don't. I think he's gonna jump in.
but if he jumps in, I mean, look, he's not attacking Trump, which is great. And people love that he's not attacking Trump. Why? Because when you battle with Trump, most likely you lose. There's no point. If there was no pandemic,
But it's getting to a point where
no
he's
BLM
losing
stuff
regardless.
going on in 2020, Trump would have definitely be buying easily. Sleepy Joe, that's it. It's over. It's over. But in this case, this guy's not budging. He's not budging at all. You could call him Meatball Ron, which is hilarious. You told me the other day, Meatball Ron. I think that's great. I mean, there's names you can name him, and that's fun and all. But if this guy's not barking back, what do you do? Now I think that in the Trump camp, they're kind of scared, like saying, "All right, what is this DeSantis guy doing?" But Trump doesn't want him to run at all, so that's why you're just saying things. You're just calling him nicknames, saying, "Oh, well, the country was better before." Florida was better before with the previous governor, and all that other stuff. And he really slammed him. I mean, I don't think it's right personally, for a guy who DeSantis copied him. He copied a lot of his, hand movements and all, right? And he wanted to be like him because he looked up. He said, "Wow, like." He said, "Wow, I like your policy. I like your this. I like how you construct your government, and I love how you handle everything. I want to be like you." So he does
I
everything
don't.
like him. He does it.
I
He
don't
does.
think it was. I like your policy. I like how you run things. I think it was I like that you're in power, and I like how you have people who like you. I want people to like me.
Well, it could be that. It could be that. But I
That's the
think
more likely one.
it could be. But I don't know. He copies him too much to the point where I think he looks up to him, and I don't think that, well, I don't know. Like
I mean,
maybe
there is
you're
like an
right,
element
but I
of
don't
that,
think.
I guess. But I think overriding it is just it's the same thing on the Democrat side with like Pete and Beto O'Rourke, where it's like they want to be Obama so bad. They try to do like the
No,
proper
Pete
speaking
is
thing and the
more.
hand.
Buttigieg is more of an Obama than Beto.
Both of them kind of do
He's
it. Pete's
not.
probably more blatant with it.
Oh yeah,
But
but Pete's
that's what
better
I'm.
with it too.
That's what I mean, though. It's like I guess like they probably look up to them. Yeah, they probably legitimately like, oh yeah, this is like the leader of my party, But I think in the back of their head, they're like, yeah, like I want to do this because I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy in charge. Because a lot of this is ego
That's
driven.
fair.
Like look at
That's
like why
fair.
Nikki Haley's running. Like she thinks she can be
Okay.
president.
No. I mean, a lot of these people, don't forget, the people that are running in this election for the Republican Party, it's coming to Trump or DeSantis. There's no question about it, and there's no third party. No.
And
There's
Pence wants to run.
there's
Like
no one's getting far. I'm telling you, Pence is gonna do as good as Jeb. All right, maybe he does a little bit better than Jeb. Let's give him a little bit more credit, right? But I mean, if you're entering that race, you're doing it to make a name. You're making a name for yourself, and that's fine. Now I know who Tom Steyer is. who the fuck is Tom Steyer? I didn't know. I had no idea before the 2020 election.
Barry
You
Johnson,
know,
baby.
Perry Johnson. Like he's a
The new
guy that
Republican running.
yeah, he's a guy I'm gonna remember. Why? Because he's running, and I was at CPAC, most importantly, right? So like I saw that when my first instance when I first saw him is something I can't get out of my head. Kind of like when I saw Yang running in 2020, right? I saw the pamphlet or whatever, and I was like, oh wow. The first thing when I think of Yang, I think of the pamphlet that I first saw, right? It was at Comic-Con, out of all things, right?
Yeah.
So, which was bizarre, but whatever. All right. So I took the pamphlet from Andrew Yang, okay, and yeah, I know Yang. I know Yang. Now I know Perry Johnson. Now I know Tom Steyer, right? Um, these are people that, and not really for Yang though, but I'm talking about like the Carly Fiorina of the party, right? Like these are people just to get their name out there, seeing that they ran, right? So those three people, we got Perry, Tom, and Carly, right? And now you could add to the list, Nikki Haley, because in the Republican Party in 2016, a lot of them looked like they had a chance. Even though you looked at Ted Cruz and said, "Yeah, he has no shot," but he had a chance, I guess, right?
He
He
got
was polling,
second.
second. I mean, even if you looked at him like, "Oh no, there's no way." Yeah, way, right? And so, and him running in 2016 upped his game. He is so more known now than he ever was before, right? Jeb Bush, you never hear of Jeb Bush anymore. You don't hear from him. No, you don't, right? There's some people you don't hear from. When's the last time you heard of Chris Christie? You don't hear from him. You don't. There's some people you don't hear from anymore. So, we went far into the election just now, right? But it's just one of those things going back to the DeSantis versus Trump, wanting to make a name, and DeSantis is that name. He could face Trump, and Fox being pro DeSantis, you have Newsmax being pro Trump, so it's gonna be a battle. It's gonna be a real battle, right? Going into 2024, and we are very intrigued to see what happens. But I think we're done on the January 6th and Fox, and we just jumped to the election.
It's all
We're
about conservative stuff.
jumping all around. But listen, when the topic is fun and like election season is usually fun. I gotta admit, election season's fun, right? Because there's always someone that's saying, "Oh, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna be a candidate," and you're like, "Who are you?" You know what I mean? There's that random moments. It's great. Um, I'm done on that.
All right, moving on. Though I think honestly, some of the election we can talk about that with the next topic, which is just some updates on the whole Ukraine-Russia
It's
conflict.
true.
If you somehow don't know about it, somehow Russia last year invaded Ukraine because they're poo-poo buttheads, and most of the Western world's on Ukraine's side, and as a result of the support that Ukraine's getting from the West, especially the United States, they're holding a pretty good fight against Russia and what people thought would be like a 2-week kind of get out like invasion, basically. So continuous updates. There've been a lot of tensions. The latest one from Russia and U.S. is that Russia jet strikes some U.S. drones. I think Russia tried to pass it off as kind of like coincidental. They didn't really know what they were doing, and in the U.S. they released video showing that, hey, I mean, it seemed pretty deliberate. You put I think they put like fuel over the drone, and then they like blew
Yeah.
it up somehow, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of a spooky place, you know, to have two nuclear powers kind of escalating in that kind of a way. But I think it's like kind of a tough game to play, right? Like the U.S. has been trying to stay out in terms like or try to hold it back in terms of like they're not going to send people obviously to Ukraine. There are certain weapons they're not going to give Ukraine, like obviously like a nuke, you know. But of course, at the same time, they said they weren't going to send certain types. They weren't going to send fighter jets. They ended up sending them certain fighter jets. So it's kind of like it's like a curious kind of moment we're in to that. On the international scale, the International Criminal Court, which I actually read that apparently the U.S. and China aren't a part of, interestingly. But they want to arrest Putin for a war crime, which the war crime is is basically deporting children from Russia or from Ukraine to Russia during this conflict. Ukraine says that Russia has deported over 16,000 kids, and that
Wow.
Ukraine has only been able to return 308 of them. So of course Russia, they're gonna like kind of pretend like, oh, we would never do this, it's all baseless. But you have the international court saying it. And it's not just that they're accusing him of this. There's a warrant out for his arrest over this, which is really interesting. Probably won't lead to anything, but it's still kind of a crazy moment to say that a world leader has a warrant out for their arrest
Can you
over a war crime.
imagine? Can you imagine like they had a warrant over the rest of like Obama and Biden and Trump and all these people be like, why
I
don't
think Bush would
you
be the most
drone
likely
strike
one out of all of them.
Bush would,
Bush has like the
right?
strongest case.
He has the strongest case, but they all have, a hand in it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of crazy, right? Like we're like, oh, that war crime wasn't that bad. That's basically what we're
Mhm.
saying, right?
It's like a because obviously I support Ukraine. I think Ukraine's on the right side of this. I think people who say otherwise are kind of stupid, honestly. And I do think that we should be supporting them broadly. There are some fun things they can go into with that, but in general, I think that we're supporting them is a good thing. At the same time, though, I think there is kind of like a Eurocentric mindset with Ukraine, especially like at the start when you see like all the videos of the towns being attacked and all this stuff. It's like, oh my god, how could this happen to a developed nation? Where it's like, yeah, this happens like everywhere. This should be a problem everywhere. Like we should be treating all of this the same. Like obviously, like we're not really in an era where there are going to be these types of invasions. Like the way we do imperialism now is a bit more subtle in some ways. Like when you look at like China, for example, the way they do imperialism is they make deals and then they basically like have control over the country with the deals they make. It's a very interesting tactic. They still have like conflicts, obviously, and they also contribute to a lot of dictatorships throughout the world. So it's like, well, Ukraine, like we're right on Ukraine. Why can't we be right on all these other ones? Like these are like
Yeah.
unjustified attacks.
Oh yeah, of course. I
And
mean,
yeah, and
from
it really is a shame though that like you said, I mean, like Bush will never have any real he'll never really get in any trouble, right, for what he did with the Middle East when he was president.
yeah, no, I mean him and I mean if you really want to go after somebody else, you go after somebody else as well. You get, you know, two birds with one stone, right? You go after Dick Cheney.
Well, yeah, I mean that whole administration you could say
I
like, hey, they
mean,
all lied, they all knowingly lied.
I think that could be stated. Um, that you could go after both of them. If you don't go against, go for the whole
I mean,
administration, at least you could go for those two. Um, you know, what I was gonna say before is that I remember when Ukraine was trying
but
to,
like I
I
was
mean, when
saying though with
Russia tried to invade Ukraine back in 2014. I mean, and they're at it again. They started again last year, and it's like, how do you fight this battle, right? What are you gonna do to tell Russia, okay, you just can't do it? Because you don't have the money, you don't have the military, because if you did, then Ukraine would never have held you off for this long. And I'm talking about like when it first happened, because obviously we're giving them weapons and stuff like that. So otherwise, Ukraine, I don't know what they would be doing, but I don't know if it would be I don't know if they would have enough weapons to fight
I think
Russia.
Russia would
I
probably
don't know.
outlast them just because the military is like the
Yeah,
thing that Russia does.
yeah, but we're helping them, so it's kind of like
Yeah.
now could be this endless war, right? There's gotta be something. There's gotta be something that they could do that Biden would have to sit down with Putin, and he has to talk it out. He has to, but I don't.
Well, Russia or Ukraine would be involved with that too, and just be a U.S. because
Of course,
like it's like a to the extent it is like a proxy war
of
to an
course,
extent, but it would be more leaders than just the U.S. and Russia.
true, but we're really involved in this. We're given how much money and how much money and weapons we're given, right? Um, we're aiding Ukraine a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So we would definitely be one of the world leaders to get involved into the conversation, right? In the very small room. Because you can have every world leader there and it really doesn't do anything. But you have to get the leaders. You get Zelensky, you get Putin, and you get Biden. You got to put them in a room, all right? And with, I guess,
Well,
other
there's more
people,
European leaders
translators.
too, that because they're also contributing to the
Yeah, of course. But
for
like I
Ukraine.
said, in a smaller room, not like, a grand big room. You gotta have a room where you could actually talk and make a point and not have, you know what I mean? Because when the room gets too big,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
listen, like,
There needs to be like an actual conversation, all right?
well, what do you think that conversation should end in? Like, what do you think do you think that there should be concession?
I mean,
Because I
I
mean,
would hope
Ukraine
for that.
basically wants like all Russia like completely out of their country. Like that's like their thing.
But yeah, they would want Russia out of the country, of course. I mean, I think that's definitely that. Yeah, I mean, yes, actually. I mean, that makes sense, right? Like, you just think
Yeah,
about it, it's like, that's exactly what you want.
but I'm saying like,
It's
okay,
like,
so what would Russia get out of that though? Because they're at fault here. Like they did the
oh yeah,
wrong
of
thing.
course. What would they get? I mean,
Because usually, like I
the
say, it's because there are people who talk like, oh, we need to sit down and have like a peace treaty and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, like I agree. Like I think yeah, like this
yeah,
shouldn't be happening. This should be like, but a lot of times people will say this and they'll be like, yeah, like just give Russia the land like that they said they wanted at first, and then that's it. And it's like, well, no, I
no,
mean, that's not
that's not.
that's Ukraine's.
You're gonna have to. I
But
don't
people,
know. I don't know
that's the
exactly
thing.
what
That's why it's like
Russia
kind of like an
wants.
annoying thing to talk about.
Of course, but I don't know what
I mean, they
exactly
wanted the
Russia
country.
wants besides land,
To
right?
they wanted to recreate the Soviet states in a weird way. They wanted the resources from Ukraine. There's a very prominent oil reserve in Ukraine. So I mean, it's like any normal imperialist type mindset, right?
Hmm.
Like they think that that Ukraine owes them something. They kind of resent it. So yeah, I mean that it's kind of like hard to just say like, oh, we should just negotiate our way out of this, but at the same time, it is like
So then, what do you
it's
do?
hard. It's like, yeah, what do you do, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what would you do then? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how would?
Hmm. And again, I think the support is really all we can do right now. And you can talk about like how much we're giving them and stuff like that, which then it comes down to like a budgeting thing, right? But even then, it's like we're America. Like we can kind of like if we want to do something, we'll just do it. As actually the other
That's true.
topic that we'll probably spend a lot of time on the banking thing. That's another example of like we'll just if we need something done, we'll just do it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's kind of how I. But there are like alluded to earlier, there are political ramifications though in America itself, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it. Because now we're getting to a point where politically this is being kind of used as like a oh like look at how much more like the Republicans use this, how much more the Democrats care about Ukraine than America, right? That's like a thing that
yeah,
we're starting to more and
I
more
think,
of.
yeah, that's the narrative being pushed.
And the Republican, it's interesting because when you ask Republican voters like how they feel about the issue of Ukraine, it is down, but it's still a majority who are for supporting Ukraine and thinks that we should send them weapons. But it's down
Because
from
no
last year.
one,
I think it's down across the board, but
yeah,
a little bit more among Republican voters. And the message is that so Trump and DeSantis are both kind of like on the oh like we need to not be invested in them at all. Like engaging this is escalating to World War III. Like this is all bad. And then you talk, and then like obviously you have like Nikki Haley, Pompeo. They're more like we need to stop Putin. He's like a dictator. He's this that. More hawkish, if you will. So it's interesting to kind of see that dynamic play out. And I think that in the Democrat side, it is kind of like a more like pro-Ukraine sentiment overall.
I mean, like you said, like I think if you ask Republicans, so like I mean, people, right?
Hmm.
They just don't want war. No one wants war, right? No one wants
Yeah.
to be partaking in any type of war. So I feel like a lot of them want to side with Ukraine, but they don't have a solution on hand, and their quickest thing is, well, just stop funding them. And it's like, I understand that,
I mean,
but
sometimes
we
they don't have a
need.
solution, then they'll default to keep funding them because it's like that's all you can do, right?
I mean, well, that's the other side, right? I feel
That's
like, but I'm just talking about a lot of like people that are Republican,
yeah, I think
not
among Republicans
politicians,
it's like
right?
that though. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Among Republican people, I
You
think they have the same sentiment. Yeah, I think
like
there are
we
people who are
keep
like, yeah, like keep funding them
keep funding
until it's
Ukraine.
done.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if
I just said I just saw like polling that indicated that at least half, like a little bit more than half. It's like 50. I think the funding is 50-50,
out
and
of
then
how many
general support
people.
is like 56 to look at the exact poll. But regardless, I mean,
Yeah,
that sentiment does make sense though, because historically, I mean, Republicans are pretty in favor of doing like, you know,
but
regime change and
it
stopping like throughout
depends.
history. That makes sense.
It depends on what they watch, though, right? Because you could talk about because there's two now. There's two sides of the Republican Party. You have quote unquote MAGA Republicans, and you have the quote unquote rhinos Republican Party, right? So we're
Well,
factoring
what's
both.
the difference though? Because I mean, even most Fox News viewers, I think, consider themselves MAGA to some extent.
Yes,
I don't think there's like a huge disparity. Like, what do
or
rhinos
I
watch?
would say I would say Newsmax would be something that MAGA people watch.
I think they watch both.
Yeah, but there's a more of an emphasis on Newsmax because if you listen to
But that doesn't. But no, that doesn't make sense
a
because
what are you talking about?
Newsmax gets less viewers than Fox, but more Republicans are MAGA. So if anything, I think most MAGA people watch Fox to some extent. I think that's pretty true.
Dick?
Like just by numbers, that doesn't make
Yeah,
sense. Because
but
if that was the case, Fox gets more views than Newsmax, and Newsmax is supposed to be for more rhino-y type people. Then wouldn't that mean that there's more?
don't forget there's two other outlets that aren't aren't really mainstream but are on cable. One American News and America's Voice.
Aren't those? But even if you add those up, I'm sure Fox would
And
beat
it's
those.
like those are on TV. It's not like I'm just looking for like something online. You know, online is different. Right? You know what I mean? Like that's just like
Oh
a
yeah, I mean
different
it's mostly old people.
group.
Old people mostly are on
All
TV
people are gonna watch the TV,
comparatively.
right? Because it's easy, it's accessible, and all that.
Yeah, but no, I still think that like it's pretty even when it comes to like supporting Ukraine. I think really what the disparity is going to be is the amount of money and the emphasis on it,
You
right?
know, that's definitely
Because
a
it's like
question I should have
because
asked when I went to
I
CPAC.
fully believe that CPAC particularly is more skewed towards manga too, but I particularly believe too
Yeah,
that like this conflict like politically in the US will play out a lot differently if like a Republican was president. You know what I
and
mean? I think there would be I don't really think there'd be much of a debate on it because in general, like when it comes to certain issues, I feel like the right is more willing to go like against the other party for the sake of it, if that
hmm
makes sense. Whereas the Democrats, I think, will try to play along and try to be bipartisan no matter what. And then on the nuance of it, I think just being pro-Ukraine just makes more sense as someone who's like actually like on the left. So I think it would be pretty universal to be for them. So I think kind of similar, honestly, to the vaccine, COVID. I like that whole thing became like a conspiracy and stuff with a lot of people. Like I think that if Republican like stayed in office, it probably wouldn't have been as much of a politically crazy thing. Um, but but back to Ukraine though, I mean,
yes and no. I mean, people know that Trump took the vaccine. People know that you know he took it and he recommended it to other people. But that doesn't. I still think there's gonna be a lot of people that question it. I don't think that there's gonna be
but it wouldn't be
that
a
many
political thing. It would
people.
be more like a normal vaccine skeptic thing. Like there's always going to be vaccine skeptics, but I think
You don't think
it
it'll be
became a
political?
political. Yeah, I don't think it'd be as political now. Like, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's apolitical people who are vaccine skeptic, but to
But
the extent where
also,
it's like you have like Republican officials like doing like these like, oh, we got to watch out for what the vaccine can do and like
you could
signal
say
like
that you could
virtue
say that
signaling. I
would
don't
be.
think that would be a thing with a Republican
It
president. No.
definitely would be, and I'll tell you why. Because look at the Democrat cities that require to have mandates for the vaccine. Democratic cities, so even if the president is not putting in the mandates, there's still a Democratic leader in a city or a state that approves of saying, okay, we need a vaccine
I don't think
mandate.
the vaccine thing would be as crazy. No.
I think so. I still think it
So,
would, absolutely. Because you still can't,
but regardless, I
because
mean, I just
regardless of what happens, okay, I'm still in New York. New York would still do the vaccine mandate, regardless. And of course, there's going to be a lot of people that don't want to take it because they're still skeptical of it, regardless of what party they're on. Okay? They
yeah,
may
but I
lean
don't
a
think
certain
that would be a
way.
political
Okay?
issue. I think it'd be a political issue.
I think it definitely would.
Maybe they would co-opt like, but okay, but mandates are one thing too. The vaccine as a whole is a whole other thing. Like you could say maybe the right would be more like, yeah, we're not for mandates, but I think that the extent where it's like you have
Don't
like
you think, though?
politicians and stuff going on these like anti-vax forums and saying like and not wanting to be straightforward if they took the vaccine, I don't think that'd be a thing, no.
But don't you think that mandating the vaccine isn't political?
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the mandates. Yeah, maybe the mandates that could still be political, but
Okay, but that would
the
still.
vaccine itself wouldn't be as politicized, no.
I think it still would be politicized because of the mandates.
Not
Absolutely.
No, because it would like they would talk about the mandates, and then the people who were like really crazy about it they would just exist. Like there's still people. There's just people who are like that, you know. Uh,
Mm, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one, but
yeah. But to my point
definitely,
though about Ukraine, like when it
yeah.
comes to like how the how like the right in America kind of reacts, that like they just like they don't want to be like the libs. You know what I mean? Like, and the libs are in power right now, so it's kind of creating like a rift in the more kind of like reactionary portion of them
Andrew, it's not the
that
libs,
wouldn't.
it's the radical left. Get it right.
Okay. Same thing. It's same thing to these people, you know. But um,
But
I lost
anyway,
my thought.
I think we're good on Ukraine.
Yeah, I guess.
Unless you have anything more that you have to say about the state of Ukraine right now with the Russian jet strikes. Yeah, I was like jet strikes the drone. Yeah, not
Yeah.
drone strikes the jets. I was say it
They
the other
struck the wrong
way.
drone. Clearly, like they struck like the few defensive ones in the ocean. No, I mean, I think we kind of just talked about some stuff. Got a little lost on the vaccine at the end, but it's fine.
Well, you know what the thing is, and like we've been doing it since I guess the start of this. We branch off because everything is connected some way or another. So it's very hard to not go into something else when everything is connected to something else. It's like a giant puzzle piece, right? And then when you see it, it's like, yeah, let's get into that one. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So what do we got next?
So, in other awesome international but mostly U.S. related news, because it started in America, the SVP crash that's been ongoing. It crashed, I believe, last Friday or Saturday. Basically, this bank it was like a tech bro type bank. A lot of people were investing in it, and the bank would invest in bonds. Bonds are usually really smart to invest in, actually, because it's like it's safe money, and the government will always invest in these projects. But obviously, since the pandemic, interest rates have been going up drastically, so it's making these bonds
Mhm.
kind of less effective investments. And as a result, there was like a massive bank run, which basically means that a lot of people who were investing pulled out. And then when people at the top pull out, everyone pulls out because they're like, oh, this isn't a smart investment anymore. And the whole bank basically collapsed as a result of that because the bank didn't have the money. So, they didn't exist. And as a result, obviously, the US government had to come in and bail these guys out. They're trying to be less corporate friendly than, in 2008, where they kind of just gave everything back to all the the bad investments. But it's not going to be perfect. And also on top of that, I mean, the U.S. justice system is probing how this happened and what exactly the execs at the top were doing, because it's been found out that a lot of the owners of the bank were selling their stock, like pretty large chunks of it, in the coming of this happening. So it's almost like, oh, maybe they knew. And I think today, Biden called on the House to basically punish, like to have hearings and to punish the executives in this bank as well. So another thing when it comes to the banking, this whole thing is that some people in Congress are also pointing out, like, hey, I mean, we in 2018 there was this really controversial bill that went through the Republicans that kind of took away some of the regulations put in place 2008's crash. Let me see the numbers. Basically, like, and it's the Dodd-Frank decision. It changed, like in 2008, we established basically that certain banks are like really important to like the overall economy in the world, and because they're so important, these regulations were put onto them so that to reduce something like this happening, so the government's more involved and they have more control over like what the bank is doing with people's money. And in 2008, we basically decided that that minimum should be 50 billion. Any bank that has more than 50 billion dollars in assets, that's a really important bank, and we have to have extra regulation on it. The 2018 bill raised that cap from $50 billion to $250 billion. So $200 billion increase from, about a decade, which is not really proportionate to inflation, if you could believe it. And this particular bank that crashed had $200 billion in assets. So it's still top 20 largest banks in the world, but not deemed systemically important by the regulations put in place. So a lot of people are looking at that and being like, pretty likely that if they were still, under the same scrutiny that they were on previously, or would have been previously, this probably wouldn't have happened. So, it's now on top. So on top of, they want to investigate the executives, and they're trying to give people their money back. The government also wants to, some parts of the government at least, are considering, re-upping those regulations. So you have anything to say about that?
I mean, you basically said everything we needed to know. Go after the executives. I mean,
True.
really. I mean, I mean, that's really what you have to go after.
Yeah, it's a very technical like subject. I kind of had to like. I'm not an expert on investments and stuff like that. I haven't done too many of those. I know you've done a little bit more investing than I have, and obviously this particular crash is really centered around like tech and crypto, which makes a lot of sense if you've been following like that stuff for the past couple of years. Like it really blew up 2021, I believe, and then
Oh
it
yeah,
went crashing down and hasn't really,
Dogecoin.
yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, and then all the other little coins, and then obviously the Bitcoin went up to what $64,000 worth. Now it's like at 22. Like
Yeah, it's insane like how
when I
quickly it went
remember.
up and how quickly it kind of went down.
But I mean, it's not like it's the first time, right? I mean, you look at
Yeah,
what
but like, it feels like a
20.
long time since it's been like really high though,
I'll put it
or
this
even like
way:
in any good standing. But
in
again, I'm
20
not an expert on this stuff.
in 2016, I believe it was around this time, or 17 maybe. I don't remember, but I do remember that it fell from like 16,000 to like 3,000. It's worth. And then just to
What
think
was
about
what
that,
was
it
its peak?
dropped. At that time, I think it was like
No, like now,
16.
like what was it? What's its all-time
Oh,
peak?
60 something thousand. I don't think it reached 70. I remember at like 60, maybe between 64 and 66. I don't
Still,
remember.
like that's a
Oh yeah,
huge,
that's a huge drop.
huge.
That's over a 40,000 drop.
Yeah,
I mean, that's big. That's that's really something. But and I'm not a guy who
and again, I think that's
knows
why like these big.
when
But
it's
I
gonna
mean,
go back
obviously,
up,
crypto is
but
like very different than like traditional banking. Like this was like a more
of
traditional
course.
bank, for tech ventures and stuff like that. And that's kind of the big thing is that they want to like right now the government and some of these other banks are trying to like reassure people that hey our banking system's fine, like we're gonna have this under control. Uh,
Oh
and hey,
yeah.
I mean, like
The other banks are kind of scared now after
they want to
this.
balance that with because the thing is that like average people are like oh my god like I might not like make a couple hundred extra bucks or whatever, but really it's like the only people that should be worried are the people like investing like hundreds of thousands of dollars and have like massive portfolios and stuff like that. Those are the people that should worry, and it's like that's kind of what you're going for if you're gonna like make these huge investments. Like you really shouldn't expect the government to bail you out.
Yeah, that's definitely
Hmm.
that's where we both agree, absolutely, in the sense of the government should not bail you out. We did it before,
Yeah.
weren't happy with the outcome, and we wouldn't be happy with the outcome again if we were to do it. So there's no sense in bailing them out.
No surprise. I mean, there are people in like billionaires in the banking industry who are 100% bailout for everyone's assets.
Yeah, that's
Not very unsurprising there.
and then there'd be the same people. Oh, you want a student loan?
Literally, literally.
Then but and it just listen. Everyone wants to work to their own benefit. I'm not saying it's the problem. I'm just saying that you're gonna have to look at everyone else except for you sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, look, when I think about me and I think about my financials, whatever, I'm not really thinking about anyone else's, right? I'm thinking about my own, which of course you're supposed to always take yourself and put yourself first, right? Always. Okay?
I mean,
But
for me, it's like I think there has to be like a limit to that, though, right?
there is, but we live in America, and in America we are for the individual, right?
I
So
feel
you
like
do have
that
to look
mindset
out for
has
your
it's like
own.
problematic to an extent.
Yeah, but unless someone changes it, that's the way to think,
Like I don't know.
right?
I feel like when you're like a multi-billionaire, I don't think you really need to care
All
as
right,
much
but I'm
about
not a
like.
multi-billionaire, Andrew.
I know, but I'm saying like I don't think your example is like the globe, you know.
Okay, but if you're saying like a multi-time billionaire, all right, that's different.
Hmm.
That's different.
Yeah.
Now you have a now you have somewhat of an unwritten responsibility. I feel like in trying to help others, even if you don't, right?
But
It's just
oftentimes, I mean,
there.
it's kind of the opposite, right?
Well, of course, it's the opposite doesn't happen,
And to the extent
but
they do, I mean, it's for what, like a tax break?
of course, it's always for a tax break. You have to understand something in America. You always want to make more money. When you make less, there's a problem. Even if you're a billionaire and you make less, there's a problem. That's how America works. That's how the system works. If you don't like it, leave. No. But if you don't like it, I mean there's obvious candidates that you could put in. Sometimes there's not enough sometimes not enough candidates, so throw yourself in the card, right? Throw yourself
Sometimes
in. And
I think it is bigger than just a political process to make the world a bit more equitable, I guess, for lack of a better term.
well, you're saying the world, or you're saying the United States? I mean, because I'm talking about the United States, and I'm not
Well, the
going
United States,
further.
the world. I mean, the world all kind of operates under this mindset for the most part, so it's not like it's
But I wouldn't
exclusive.
say that the world operates only on this mindset. I wouldn't say that. A lot of countries do things a lot differently than we do. I like for better or for worse.
Okay, there's a lot of countries that operate under that. How's
Okay, there you go.
that?
But I'm talking about just for America, right? Because at
Okay.
the end
But
of the
regardless,
day,
we want to make
that's what I
America
care
a
about
better
the
place.
most. I care mostly how America is operating because I live in it. If they do something in Switzerland, it doesn't bother me because I don't live in Switzerland. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's that's my take on that. Um, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add to that.
I think that's all.
That's all. Okay. I think that this should be a fun one, right? We're gonna be talking about TikTok. Now,
Okay.
TikTok. Oh man, this is gonna be fun. Uh, TikTok is and I'm not kidding you, is the worst probably the worst social media app you could ever download onto your device. Like, absolutely. Like, any of them that you see on Fox and they say it's bad because of China, they're absolutely correct on this one. They're absolutely right. Delete the fucking app now. But before you delete the app,
It's also my favorite app, just saying.
yeah. But before you do that, check out the interviews on Pro Political Gear. We have interviews where I'm giving out interviews. So before you delete the app, do that. Leave a like, okay, and follow. I don't know if it takes it away if you delete it off your device, and then follow us on Instagram, right? Follow me on Instagram, right? That that's what you gotta do. But anyway, the UK, in all seriousness, they banned TikTok from government phones. But this is no surprise because in December of 2022, the United States also banned TikTok on all federally owned government devices, which makes a lot more sense that UK would follow suit. The Biden administration is looking to ban TikTok. So it's not even like it's only a Republican thing or a right-wing thing. No, I think both parties are going to come together on this one. But you're asking, what's the problem with TikTok? The only thing you know is it's bad, okay? Maybe you do know. But for those who don't know how bad TikTok really is, okay? So this is in their privacy policy, right? It says information you provide in the context of composing, sending, or receiving messages is in that, right? And what does that mean? It means that TikTok can see messages that you've never sent. If you're just typing it, okay, and you never sent it, they can see that. Now, are they actually looking at me doing that? Absolutely not. But it's just the privacy aspect of it, of saying that they can do this, right? And if you don't think it's that bad, okay, fine. I'll give you this one, okay? There was a study done, and this is a source from The Independent, right? That people have a lower attention span, about 90-minute drop a day because of this app, which totally makes sense. I mean, I feel like my attention span. You want to know why the attention span also? Look at a video. Look at a random video, right? Of anything, of a speaker, someone just speaking. Okay, they will have Minecraft or some kind of game or Subway Surfers on the bottom of the screen to keep you to watch that video, because a lot of people's attention spans have gone down. So you need something else to watch in the meantime. You're watching two things at once to watch one thing, right? So it's crazy. It's not like you're watching two things because, oh, okay, I'm going to watch this movie, because I have two screens where I can watch a movie and I can watch the sports game, okay? You're watching one thing. One thing. You're only watching one thing, and they give you something to watch so you could stay in tune to that video. That is terrible. That's a terrible attention span. You have the attention span of a gnat. And now this is going to be a problem, especially with not only Gen Z, Alpha generation, and every generation to come, if we keep doing those videos. And Instagram, they have Reels. You have YouTube has Shorts. You have all these other companies trying to do the same thing that TikTok's doing because they have such a grand success from it. So, but that is just something from a personal problem that you can develop, right, if you keep using any of these apps, or I mean, not just Instagram, but the Shorts, like their Reels and stuff like that, right? But let's blame that on TikTok. Fuck them. That's why. All right. The app collects a large amount of personal information. Okay, your location, your contacts, everything in your messages, as I mentioned before. All right. Also, now this one I think is one of the biggest problems that we don't talk about, right? So it says many security researchers have found security vulnerabilities in the TikTok app. They range from hackers using the SMS messages to gain unauthorized access to accounts, through to issues surrounding around the use of HTTP or HTTPS and delivering videos when delivering videos, right? And basically what the Biden administration, what all these other politicians are saying is the these Chinese owners have to sell it. Okay? And you could look at it from a few different angles here, right? You could say, well, the reason why they want them to sell it, well, they could be a big buyer. They could have a big buyer that they're not saying that would want to buy the app. Okay, that's one. Number two, they want to kill the app because it's taken away from Facebook, Instagram, and all these other companies that are in the pockets of the government. And you could say that. I mean, it's very believable. It's not like it's a crazy tinfoil hat type of an idea, right? So you have that, or they can actually just sell the company, give it to some American guy, and then they'd be like, okay, that's it. It's a good app now. Will they make the privacy policy much better? We don't know that. I'll give you a conspiracy theory for you. Now, they say they don't do this, but I believe they do. You go on Facebook. You have the Facebook app, right? And when you sit down and you're talking to somebody, and then you pick up your phone and you check Facebook, you're scrolling through, and you see some sponsored ads. And some of the ads are exactly what you're just talking about, and you never even typed it in. I believe that Facebook is listening. I absolutely believe that. They say they don't. They've been proven that they didn't. But I don't believe that. For an instance, all right? For an example, right? I was in a music class about maybe 2-3 years ago. Oh God, wow. The pandemic era has been terrible. It's been making the years seem much longer, and it's terrible. But anyway, back when I was taking a music class, right? I had to take it. It was one of those classes you had to take or whatever. And it's like that or art or whatever. But anyway, I'm sitting down in class, and the teacher's talking about music notes. Okay? Never did I ever type in anything about music notes in my class, on my phone or anything, right? I didn't even use a device to take my notes down. I had a notebook. And after class, what do I see? I see music notes on my advertisements on Facebook. How? Like, and that's just one example. I mean, there's definitely other times where I'm like, wow, I just talked about this. How is this popping up? And as great as that may sound, because like, wow, just talking about that. Let me go pick that up. If I didn't have a brain, that's exactly what I would say. But because I do have a brain and it works sometimes, I like to turn around and say, hey, why did that pop up when I never typed it in on anything? Well, it makes you think. So will TikTok be a better app? I don't know. The only thing I know is that the Chinese know that I love watching videos, a certain type of videos, and I don't know, they could go into my phone, they could look at my contacts, see my messages, okay? And that could be a problem. The last few parts could be a problem. Not what they see what I like. I don't really care what they see what I like. I mean, that's nothing, right? But the privacy that we do not have in this country is amazing. And
Yeah.
I remember talking to my political I forgot what the class was. It was like Politics 101, something like that. He was my teacher, and I talk about him very highly. African American teacher, and he was my Caribbean teacher, Caribbean history teacher. He was great, right? He came from Cuba. So this guy is a full-on socialist. And he'll say things that I'm like, okay. You know, like he was like, okay, well, everyone should be making $75,000 a year. Just doing nothing. And I was like, well, that's absurd, okay? And I didn't have to debate that. There was other people debating that for me. But he did say one thing. He did say, well, he said a lot of things that I turned around. I was like, oh, wow, look at this. When he's talking about easy passes, you can't go to another state without being tracked. Now, this is a good thing when you want to catch criminals, but it's just in the mind of they're tracking you everywhere you go. He doesn't have any social media accounts. He will not sign up for any of them. But Easy Pass, they track you where you go. And they also have, in New York at least, speed cameras everywhere. Now, I understand that sometimes it's good to have them near schools and not what, right? But everywhere. It's almost everywhere. It's crazy how there's cameras everywhere. And it's going to come to a point where we turn around like, when is it enough? When do we actually say, okay, I care about my privacy? Because if we're going at the stage we're going, we don't care about our privacy as much as we say we do. We really don't. So this is bigger than just an app. It's way bigger than just TikTok. It goes throughout the whole spectrum of following other people and what they do in their day-to-day life. And that is something that everyone's going to have to sit down and think about and be like, wow, this is really a problem. And now whether someone does or not, I mean, that's the question. And I don't think it's going to be done. Personally, realistically, I do not see anyone coming forward saying this is a problem. They'll say TikTok's a problem, okay. But, and we're talking about the other day, we're talking about Band-Aid solutions. This is a Band-Aid solution to what I think is going to be even more of a grander problem later on. So that's what I have to say about TikTok.
Okay.
But the app is funny as fuck. I'm still using it.
Me too.
You know what I mean? So it's like, and this
Do we care about our
mindset is terrible.
privacy?
Yeah, but it's seriously, it's like, I say all this stuff. It's true, most of it at least, right? Documented factually, right? I say this stuff is true, and I'm still on the app. You are no better than me, and I'm no better than you. We do the same thing, and that's the problem. But do we stop? No, because our selfishness, we really want to laugh. So where do we go? TikTok's a funny app. That's where I'm gonna go. Because the other social media apps can't do what TikTok does.
I mean, they kind of do, I guess, right?
They do,
Just they
but
have the
but
reels
but
and
I'm
all that.
saying for personal things. For some people, they don't. It doesn't achieve what other social media does for them, right? Like the way we send videos. You will never send me 100 videos or 100 links from Twitter. You'll send me 100 videos from TikTok, but you'll never do it from Twitter, and why? You'll never send it through Instagram, and why? You'll never send it through Facebook, and why? It's just something that we just enjoy. And look, that's part of the problem. We are a part of the problem. So, I mean,
Hmm.
but yeah.
Well, I think in general, I mean, even if like 2 people stop using TikTok, it's not going to fix anything. Like
But that's the mind.
boycotting a massive
You know what that's the same thing as?
what?
It's the same thing as, oh, well, you know what? This person's going to win. I'm not going to vote. It's the same mindset. And you're right. I agree with you, though. But I'm just pointing that out. I do agree with you, though. I don't think us stopping, unless we pull together a movement, right? I don't think, and even if we did pull a movement, I don't think it would be strong enough to take down TikTok or for telling other people to stop using it, stop using these other apps. Because guess what? Something like Facebook or another app that can take information and be really bad with it, we're telling people on that platform what not to do. How would they get that message? So it's like a big spiral. It's a big mess that we're in.
Exactly. Like you have to work within the system.
And
That's hard. And on top of that
yeah,
too, I mean, the angle that we're kind of going at potentially banning TikTok has nothing to do with any of what you're talking about, unfortunately. As important as it is, a lot of it really it just comes down to like the Cold War, like the new Cold War between China and the US. It's not as pronounced obviously as the Russian Cold War, but you know, that's kind of what we call it. Basically, I mean, they just kind of want to they don't like that China has such a large stake in TikTok. That's kind of their main gripe. And I think you even alluded to that early on in your rant. Like
yeah, I did.
they probably will just have like they want probably someone particularly in the US to buy it, whether it's a company or an individual, to run the app. I mean, if it ran the exact same way with the same terms of service and the same type of algorithm, they probably wouldn't care, do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's
And
what
there
I'm
it's
saying.
really like a yeah, there should be more done to it. You're right. And I don't know. And I disagree with your notion about Facebook recording. We've talked about it many times. I just think that like you saying like they record you, it kind of undercuts the degree to which their algorithm works because it's a very there's so much that goes into like these social media algorithms and
So
like
how
how
would I
they
get that
discern.
though? Let's talk about the example I provided though with the music note. How would you describe that and say no, they're not recording you? How would they get that?
Talk to people interested in music. You know, music's a pretty universal thing.
Talk to
Uh,
people into music.
have you
Where?
do you talk to people in your class? Have you ever talked to anyone in your class?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't
I
talk
mean,
to many people. It was just kind of like it wasn't that type of class.
okay. Well, I'm saying like, did you like have you had to message them for homework or anything like that,
No,
or there's just other students that or the people you
no.
did talk to that were in the music class? Like, there's a lot of variables. You know what I
They
mean? There's
I
so
talked
many.
to. Okay, but now there's maybe small talk with certain people, but again, how would it be on
Well,
my phone?
I'm talking about messaging. I'm talking specifically phone interaction. And even if it's not individual students in
No,
a
no, no.
particular
Absolutely
class,
no phone interaction. No phone interaction. So I'm saying there's no phone interaction. So how can it
okay.
be that that got into my phone?
I mean,
And
again,
this might you probably can't.
talking to other students. No, like there's so many like ways in which that type of information, because it's not like it's like specific enough to where it's like okay, music notes. I mean, music notes are something that a lot of people talk about. You know,
Oh my
or
god!
there's
It's
like people. Yeah, it's
they
true.
talk
Like there's
about okay,
music's a
but
very like universal thing. Again,
uh
I'm not saying that's like, oh yeah, you don't have nothing to worry about because you do, but what you're worrying about isn't like your mic being on 24/7. What you have to worry about is these guys know everything about who you talk to, where you go, what
yeah,
you
that I agree with.
stuff.
I agree with that too. I agree
Like
with that
but
too.
I think just blaming it on like, oh, they're recording you, it's like so like one note, you know? Like in a weird
Man, there's
way,
been
like what I'm
other
saying
times where
feels
that
more
has happened. That is the best example I can provide because I never typed it in. You know what I
you don't
mean?
have to
So
type
it's
it
like
in. That's my point. You don't have to type it in. You know someone who's into it. You could know
so
someone like 5 links away, and it's like, okay, or they based on your demographics, it's like, okay, you're a
I
male
never
student.
got it, but
You're
I never got
but
that
okay,
again.
but
Even when I was a student.
this around this time of year, male students, maybe they're in this class, maybe like you know what I mean? Like there's so many things that can go into. I'm not saying this is exactly what it is, but they can know like your occupation, your job, like the
I
time of year.
understand that,
Like it's
but so they
yeah.
know what classes I was taking.
Well, they don't know, but they can guess like, okay, like
They can guess. That was a really good guess. That was a good one. That was a good guess.
I mean, music's like
That's the
it's like
case.
you said, you have to. It's not like you're into music like that, like to learn. Like I'm saying, to learn like the history and all that.
Yeah,
Like you took it because you had to. So a lot of people had to. If they're going to
yeah.
Kingsborough, they probably take music at some point. I'm sure you probably took it at a common point that people take it too. You know, again, I don't know for sure like the intricacies of that particular one, but there's just so many things that
I'm
could
just
happen.
saying it's a little sus, man. That
It
listen,
is.
I
It
mean,
is.
I look, they could get information from all the different means, and it's wrong. Don't get me wrong. Like it's definitely wrong. All right, it's not right. But this one is and specifically this one really got me. I was like, wow. I was like, and at first I said, no, I don't know if they listen. And when that happened, I was like, that's it. I said, there's a good chance. There's a good chance because there was other things before that, but I was like, I don't know. But then that came out. I was like, okay. So, but there's no answer to it, and you're not gonna know an answer because you don't know the algorithm, right? I don't know the algorithm either, but I'm going
Yeah.
off the fact that's not just the algorithm. I'm going with the fact that I think that it's listening some of the time. I don't know if it's all the time, but some of the time I think it is. So, I mean, we come on to full disagreement on that. That's fine on the listening
I
part.
think for the most part though, like the issues of privacy are important. I think
That
this is
yeah.
really not gonna structurally change anything. It's just gonna be mildly inconvenient to us wanting to send each other stupid AI
Absolutely. It's
videos of
going to
Joe
be a
Biden.
mild
Yeah.
inconvenience. I think you said it best. Mild inconvenience.
Alright.
But I think that's it for TikTok. Unless there's anything else you want to add to TikTok.
I think that's all.
So we know privacy not safe, as you know. And into the smaller news before we end today's session. We went for a good amount of time today, right?
Yeah.
A little longer than we thought, but that's what it's all about. Good discussion, debating. Um, that's what it's all about. I hope you guys enjoyed us going back and forth. But in the smaller news, we got Kamala got booed last night at a March Madness game, but TBS didn't allow that to make TV. I think someone was saying it was because the parent owner is CNN. I don't know if it was all because of that or they just didn't want the vice president
I
to get
think in
booed.
general it's just a bad look, right?
Yeah, just a bad look in general. I think I don't
I mean,
know
those
if
are
the
always
whole
those are
CNN
always
thing.
funny videos when you see like
Yeah,
politicians get booed at games because they expect to like have all this glamour. It happened to Rudy Giuliani recently, I think. He went to like I think it was a Yankees game,
Virginia
and he
was there a
got
Yankee
booed.
game? When?
He went to some baseball game and like I think someone pointed it out, and then you just heard nothing but boos.
Really? No. You know who
Yeah.
got booed?
Who?
Ted Cruz, and he deserves it. He's a Houston Astros fan. He deserves to get booed. You boo him. You boo him. He's a Houston Astros fan. He's a cheater fan. I mean, don't get me wrong. The team's great, but they cheated in 2017, probably 18 and 19. I wouldn't put it past them. So the Houston cheaters. Okay, I know I got some people that don't like me right now after saying that, but too bad. I'm a Yankee fan.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh, back to Kamala being kind
back
of
to Kamala.
disliked. She I think it's a pretty consistent thing, right? Like a lot of people kind of don't like Kamala. It's kind of always been a thing. That's why she dropped out before any votes were cast
Oh
after kind of
no,
being pushed.
you're absolutely wrong, Andrew. I mean, if you watch good TV like I do and watch The View, you would understand that she has done so many things. They're saying how many things that she was doing, and people don't like her because she's a black woman. She's a woman of color, and people don't like that, and they're
What were
gonna
some of
put
these
her
things
down.
that the View inquired about
Oh, they were
Kamala?
saying how she went to certain places and this and that, and it was like, man, do you understand? Kamala is actually one of the worst vice presidents. She's supposed to, because her job is supposed to be a better speaker than the president, because the president can't speak too well because of his age, or if you want to say dementia or whatever you want to say, he can't speak like he's in his 60s or his 50s or his 40s. So the vice president's job in this term is supposed to make him sound good. She sounds terrible. She gaffes as much as him. Anytime you give
Yeah.
her a mic, then when she's talking, if she's not gaffing, she's talking about something else, and then she does her laugh. She thinks she's like a Hillary with the laugh. It's annoying. It's like no one wants that. Nobody asks for that. So
Very vapid.
and I can't really say the other choices for VP that he was choosing were going to be any better. So, but she's not a good vice president at all. Not that they're supposed to do all so much, but her one job, everyone knew what she had to do, and it was to speak properly and to basically speak better than the president. That's basically what her core job was supposed to be. Everyone understood the assignment except for her. So, and the View could say all they want, but we totally disagree. Okay. In other news, we have Trump can now post on YouTube. He was banned, as we talked about earlier today, January 6th,
He got banned on the
2021.
day.
He got banned since the day. Yeah.
That's-
So, well, remember they banned him from social media all the way, and people were like, "Oh, but he stole the president." So it's like that whole debacle happened. So, but now he could post on YouTube, and I think Google really sat there and said, I think he learned a valuable lesson, and he understood what you're supposed to do as president. Maybe you don't say certain things, and he really took that to heart, and he's a good person, and I think that he's really grown as a person, and we decided to give him his account back Fuck that. He spent so much money to give him his account back because he's gonna be doing so many advertisements on DeSantis and Biden. It's insane. That's why. That's why they unbanned him. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. Regardless of what you think, they did not do it out of the goodness of their heart. I will tell you that. All right. Next, we have Sam Bankman-Fried. Now, this guy, we know this guy from FTX. His FTX company racked up to a $400,000 DoorDash bill. Okay, with documents showing that he gave staff $200 a day to spend on food. So, yeah. Well, food deliveries, that's what DoorDash is.
How big was his? Oh, wait. Oh. Dude.
Yeah, so like he gave a lot of money for but it didn't matter because he was scamming everyone. So it didn't matter. The whole thing was a scam. And the last thing and the last thing that we have for today in the small news, well, it's not really small news, but we're running out of time here. It's a good, EPA is to limit forever chemicals in drinking water. If you want to give a little something on that before we head out.
I mean, it's nothing really to it. Like, there's just like a certain kind of chemical that's in a lot of types of water that they're basically trying to lower it. They're making it, I forget the number was before, but I think now it's like the lowest possible percentage that you can reasonably get in that water. That's what the standards are going to be now, as opposed to before where it was a bit more loose and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's good.
All right. And so that will do it for today. We hope you have a very happy St. Patrick's Day. There was nothing special to this except for the fact I had a green light behind me. So go out, have fun, drink responsibly, get drunk, but don't drive. Don't do anything too stupid. And thank you for tuning in for this episode of Pro Political Pod. And we will see you next time. Next week. All right. We'll see you guys later. Have a good day. Have a good night. And that's it. Peace.